Well, welcome back to week 2 of the book of Matthew, and we've been looking at the book of Matthew from the perspective that it's broken into 5 blocks, and this is the second block, which is based around Matthew chapter 10. And so, Esther, do you want to give us a quick overview what we're up for?
Yeah, so this block really is about mission, which is quite interesting because when you would think about the book of Matthew and think about mission, I think for most of us what would come into our minds would be the Great Commission, which is at the end of Matthew in Matthew 28. But actually we see mission introduced much earlier on, and here in chapter 10, Jesus is on mission, and then he gathers the disciples together and he begins to teach about mission. So that's what we're going to look at today. Right. Steve, do you want to just take us through some of what Jesus was teaching?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, so the Great Commission at the end is now saying what you've experienced in mission and discipleship, now go and replicate this throughout the whole world. So you actually have to have read all the rest. Right. So if you've been reading through Matthew, you've seen Jesus is on mission. So he's out preaching the gospel, healing the sick, casting out demons. Crowds are flocking to him.
Kicked off Revolution Tour last week is what he did.
He kicked off Revolution Tour, that's right, cool. Yeah. And so then, as Esther said, he gathers his disciples together, and then chapter 10 is when he teaches them about mission.
It's really great when we read the Bible to read it in context, and there's this really good segue in chapter 9 into chapter 10. And Jesus says this in verse 36, he said, he saw the crowds and had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless. And we know you need to do mission from a heart of compassion. Otherwise, the helping hurts, doesn't it? Yeah. And so if you got it from the wrong motivation. So Jesus says, first of all, he had a heart of compassion, and that's what moved him. He said the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord of the harvest to send more workers out. And this is a really interesting, I find this fascinating because Jesus doesn't say, pray against the devil, he's attacking the kingdom. Or he doesn't say, God, send them into church, Lord, bring more people in. He actually just says, no, the harvest is there. All it needs is for you to go, for you to get on mission. And so that's the setup into chapter 10 about launching into mission. He calls out the disciples by name. And then... Yeah,
so the context is he's gathered them to go, the defining thing is, do you guys get mission? Right. And so he's going to teach them about mission. So a bit like the Sermon on the Mount, there are all these different sections that you could go into. This chapter 10 has all these different paragraphs where Jesus kind of talks about different elements of it. So again, you can just read through them and, and go into different things in different levels of detail. Like the first one, he's really specific, go out, heal the sick, raise the dead, drive out demons, but things like don't take any gold, don't take copper, don't take an extra bag, just I just want you to go and learn how to trust me.
Wow. So there's this total dependency on God to supply all your need. And I think what Jesus was trying to say is that if you trust God when you're little, can you thrive with the little? Can you thrive in the season when you've got nothing and dependency on God? I remembered a story once where, my own personal life, where God had called us to change countries and to come here to this incredible nation and be on mission and live on mission. And there was a season at the start of the journey where we just ran out of money. That's what happened. But my wife and I, we had prayed and prayed for God to supply. We knew God was going to come through. We just didn't know how. And someone caught me at the end of a service, and it's the first time it's only ever happened to me. One of those crazy stories, someone gives me an envelope and they're shaking and they're feeling apologetic. I hope this doesn't offend you. And I just said, maybe you're the answer to my miracle. And we got home and we just opened up that envelope, and we were just shocked when we opened it up and what was in it. It was actually the equivalent of 2 weeks' rent and the groceries. Wow. And it got us through that season of little. And then after that, my wife got a job and we got on track and away we went. But what we learned out of that season when we had nothing is that God hadn't called us here for things to fail. Yeah. And so what we took away from that season, and we still carry it today, even when we face difficult times, we learned that God hasn't called us here for things to fail. Yeah. And it was thriving in the nothing. It was going out and just being obedient.
So later on in Matthew, Jesus will say, okay, now do take extra stuff. But it's like God always takes us through those times. It's like, don't camp there, but I'm going to teach you some things in that place of real dependency.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
It's interesting, the whole lot of the other paragraphs of this tension, it's like, man, some people aren't going to like what you're doing,
Right.
but just, be gracious, be kind, but you're going to get rejected by some, but some people are going to be receptive. It's like, you gotta get your head around what this kind of mission thing's going to look like and feel like.
Yeah, and he also says there's an actual cost
Right.
to following Jesus.
Yep.
And sometimes we think when we take a step of faith or obedience or we go on mission,
Yep.
that because we're obeying God, the coast is going to be
Yeah.
clear and it's going to be an easy run. But I love that Jesus is like, no, this is mission and there is a cost and it won't be easy all the
Right.
time, but God will provide. And then he also mentions, he kind of balances it, that there's also times where you will be accepted as well.
Yeah.
And
Right.
grace will be there and blessing will be there.
But then other times, don't suppose I've come to bring peace. I've come not to bring peace but a sword. It's like, actually doing this will push some buttons for people. It will
Wow.
create some reaction.
Yeah.
And it's good to point out, Jesus wasn't talking about we're going to go out with swords and
Yeah.
start attacking people, but really what he's talking about is that the gospel, or Jesus actually divides people, doesn't it? As soon as you say, I follow Jesus or I believe in Jesus, you get some reactions, don't you?
Yeah, and he said some people will love that and welcome it,
Yeah.
and some people won't. And so he has this great saying, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. And so then he says, therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves.
Wow.
And he's basically saying, like, don't do dumb things. Like, use your
Right,
brain, don't be stupid. Try and navigate this tension,
Yeah.
because my heart is to save these people and save this world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't create unnecessary conflict.
Yeah, I'm guilty. I've done some dumb things.
Surely not.
And I read this and it's like, Jesus, this is gold, isn't it? This is so good. Like, Jesus is here and he says, there'll be opposition, but there's a whole heap of people who want the gospel. That's why you're in your e-group. You are hungry for this. You're one of those people who's open to this and that God's moving in and moving through.
Cool.
We encourage you right now in your e-groups to read Matthew chapter 10 and read about Jesus, how he taught on going on mission. And he actually said, hey, you just got to get out and do this thing. And by Matthew 28, he just says, go.
Yeah.
Just go make it happen. And I think what I like about Matthew chapter 10 is that you don't need the website, you don't need the t-shirt, you don't need the branding. Jesus says you can leave it all behind, just step out and do something. Just have a go, make a start, take a lead. And so a great question to ask in your e-groups right now is, what is mission? What do you think mission is? What does it mean to you? And we encourage you to get on mission, live the revolutionary life, and we look forward to seeing you next week.